Okay. So now I screwed that up. Well, it was one from the office. Okay, so now, wait, don't go away, Rafe. I need to invite friends, right? So Alex Davis, Alexander Davis, right there, invite. And then that's it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But then I can't see my stream over there anymore. Oh my God.
Wait, are you just live on Facebook or are you?
Yeah, no, live on Facebook. I'm supposed to be doing it. Alex is supposed to interview me today.
Oh.
Alexander Davis, this Alex. And for some reason, it wouldn't like let me join his, so now I'm trying to get him to join mine.
Well, this is a live stream, like, but he can't really join. It's not like a chat.
Oh, see, we thought that that's how that worked.
No, this is like streaming, like, you know, on Twitch.
I know this is streaming, but then it was supposed to be like another person's contribution to my nightmare. Oh, hey, Joy. So I can't get my window back now, though. Oh my God. Oh, Vince.
Why don't you just do the Google whatever Hangouts?
Well, I don't know. This was the route that we were going to take, and we were going to talk about, I don't know. Oh, we were going to talk about how to become a better role player, and then stuff that I've been doing.
That's what we're doing.
Well, I'm glad that it's entertaining people to see me like flounder with technology.
Oh, is that what you were saying?
That's what's happening.
That's what I'm doing on ESO right now, actually, is role playing with my friends.
Raven made cookies.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, hey, Dan. Okay. I am live. Okay, here comes Alexander Davis. Alex, I don't think that we were just discussing this, and I don't think that it's like two screens on the screen at the same time.
You can join the chat.
Yeah, he's in the chat right there.
Yeah, but you can't because it's not like a call. It's like
Okay, so do you just want to like hammer out any questions for me, Alex? I don't know how to satisfy what it is that you wanted to do. If you were going to YouTube or blog it or stuff.
Do you hear me?
Well, I don't know. You were like the backup dancer of this whole thing. So. There is no multi-chat. Okay, so Dee says there's no multi-chat. Oh, Hilly. Oh, I should do a live more often. Hillary is my fishing buddy that I haven't even seen since I've been back. What can I share about my Kickstarter? It hasn't launched yet. I'm still working on it. It's actually because of a non-disclosure. I'm not sure that I can even say the name of it yet until RPG Crate announces it. So just like RPG Crate, the last one I did was Foscanansi. I was commissioned to do a module for RPG Crate, and and after they announce the theme and everything, I'll be able to release the name and launch it. So unfortunately, you might just be like a week too early. So, but it's like we'll add a few extra things to the Kickstarter version of the module. It's the intent of the module. I can tell you this is the intent of the module is to take the old school technique of having the party dynamic of classes being essential, like that strategy of fighter, magic user, cleric, thief, those 4 core classes, and visiting each of those and reinforcing what it means to have a balanced party and approaching role play in that old setup of like who's going to play the fighter, magic user, cleric, thief to have a balanced party. So there's sections of the adventure that highlight each party. I think it's pretty good. I've read it so many times and edited so many times that I'm getting tired of reading it. So, but it's going to be a great module when it's done. We got like a pile more, but loaded up behind it. I got Rick Martins to help me write stuff now, and we're cranking through stuff. How will it make better players or DMs? Well, I'm a firm believer in the first edition old school Dungeons and Dragons style of role-playing game where it uses the 4 classic tropes and a balanced party. I'm not such a big fan. One of the things that I don't like about the newer sort of role-plays is mechanics is how one character can almost do it all. I liked it when the party was interdependent on one another. So there's anything wrong with new or bad additions. I don't want people to think I'm against any addition, but that's the thing that I enjoyed. I think revisiting what it means to have a balanced party and highlighting the strengths of each character class and trope will help make better players in the end and help make a more team-oriented party instead of it's the pop-ups. Oh, Wendy. Hi, Wendy. Wendy Swanson. So I think does that answer that question? Or I don't know, maybe. But one of the things that we did with to help make better players is, I'm sorry to sort of do this like plug, but when I did the Lands of Lunacy, Glenn is watching, Glenn Hellstrom, and he did a great review of Lands of Lunacy. But when I went to conventions, one of the things that I saw was people were sort of drifting and, like losing attention. I feel like when I'm at a convention, it's my duty almost to entertain everybody at my table. So one of the things I did for Land of Lunacy was just almost for convention play was to make these sort of effects that when people would just sort of, a convention is very distracting. There's lots of noise and things. And so there's effects that you have to role play in Lands of Lunacy. Like, let's see if I can pick one out here, or some out. The afflictions. One person appears to be the perfect ideal of beauty or handsomeness to whoever lays eyes on them. Another person believes they're a 9-foot-tall raptor and they have to try to manipulate their swords with their, and it gives the players at a convention table, especially at a convention table, something to role play where they're not necessarily committed to the characters and things. And I think sometimes those like quirks where like, okay, you think everybody's face is melting, gives you something else to play. And it's really worked out well. Every time I've run a Lands of Lunacy adventure at a convention, it's really gone over well. And I've been very pleased with like the feedback and the results. There's a couple of little tiny edits in here that I think I'd like to tweak a little bit, but overall, I'm still really happy that we have this. And Rick Martins has been writing stuff with me, and we've been coming up with you get tons of projects that I just need to catch up with the illustrations for. But I think just those plugs like that will help sort of get people in the role-playing mindset. After people get in their mindset of things, of their afflictions or whatever, you sort of just lose track, and they're already role-playing now that they've been immersed. How often do I go to conventions, and what are my favorites? One of my favorite convention is GaryCon, because it's where my career started, and I became friends with Luke Gygax, and I got on staff there. I was a special guest at GaryCon there, and I will go every year. I fly out. my next con that I really enjoy going to is North Texas RPG Con. Doug has been like very welcoming to me and very supportive of my career. And uh, geez, I don't even know. Doug actually probably started my art career and started making my artwork collectible for me. I wasn't sure what to do, and he's like, "Oh, I want to buy some of your work." And he started buying work, and he told his friends that he was buying my work. And then next thing I know, I can't keep up with painting commissions. People are buying them. So Gary Con is very special to my heart because it's where my career started. I met Zach there, started working for Lesser Gnome, and then North Texas was right after it. But there's others that I like. A Game Hold Con. I mean, I'm friends with Alex Kammer. He's like a terrific guy. He runs an outstanding convention. So I mean, that's like really the holy trinity. But I was also a guest at uh, EverCon up in northern Wisconsin, and that was a lot of fun. So yeah, those 3 or 4 cons. And now that I'm on the East Coast, I'll be attending SnowCon again, which is up here in Maine. But no matter what, hell or high water, I will fly, hitchhike, or easy rider my way to GaryCon every year for sure, and to Texas whenever possible. I just missed it this year because I lost my dad right when the convention was on. What do you think a player, Alex asks, what do you think a player should be most keen to improve upon while playing a game in order to get the most out of a game? I don't know. Just being present, contributing to the conversation, trying to. I think a player, you should really try to. I'm guilty of doing this too. You should really try to minimize the Monty Python jokes, the offhanded comments, the out of character interactions. I do it myself. But there's a point when you go overboard. There's a point where it's kind of fun and it contributes and it's funny. And then there's a point where I think that the offhanded comments and Monty Python jokes is distracting from the game. So I think just be conscious of that line. And I know that like digital tools at the table are great tools, but honestly, sometimes I think it distracts. If I do it at the table, even if I have like a PDF while the players are trying to decide to do something, I'll pop over to my Facebook, and just that, even if it was a few seconds, it starts to become a distraction. So more puns, Glenn says. Yeah, yeah. Anything Chris Clark at a table is full of puns. So if you like puns, but yeah, so like devices at a table, I find can be distracting if it's not used very cautiously. And yeah. What do I do as a game designer to encourage players to be the best players they can be as opposed to characters? Um, well, when we write stuff, I try to give hints. I try to leave more than one solution, but more than anything, I try to leave adventures wide open for DMs to add their own solutions. So sometimes you don't have a choice. This is the solution, and but sometimes you got to just leave it a little bit wide open so DMs can add stuff. And then we try to sweeten the flavor text a little bit, so the room descriptions might be a little more flowery than they need to be sometimes, but you give the DM the tools. So when we're creating adventures, we just try to give the DM the tools. That's the goal, right? Because every adventure is going to be unique. If you want to keep on the Borderlands for 20 different DMs, it's going to be 20 different games every time. The map will be the same, but the adventure, the descriptions, and the results will all be different. Corey, not a fan of bards, eh? Bards in 5e are pretty neat, but I haven't actually played one yet, so I'm up for that. Alex, what products do you have or have you done that you feel would advise or help the most in that particular goal? Well, I think really, like I said, the Lands of Lunacy is my like turned into my pivotal point, because from there we're writing adventures just for that setting. But what it does is it gives the DMs a tool. So Lands of Lunacy is really like this chaos void, which is everyday life and everything, but it's just chaos. And the Lands of Lunacy are these little pocket dimensions inside there. So and they're controlled by lunar gates, or I mean, you could get sucked in through a teacup or whatever. So it's really a tool for the DM. So when you have a game night, if you have 6 players and only 3 of them show up, but those 3 still want to play, but you don't want to roll new characters for those 3, even in the middle of the adventure, they can find themselves in a Land of Lunacy dimension. You can have a one-off, and then they come back and no time has passed, and when your group is together the next. So I think to achieve those end goals, to help make better players, we do everything we can to give the DM the tools we want to help see the crazy visions that's in our heads. I really enjoy what I do, so writing these adventures is just turning into like my everyday life. How do I, as a DM, handle a sandbox type game? I did write a couple of sandboxes, and they weren't always smooth. What was it? Curse of the White Mind is a sandbox adventure where, I mean, at the beginning you're kind of railroaded, so the players are captured and put in a holding pen in the goblin mines. But then when you get out, it's just like, okay, you can walk away from the adventure, but really there's a tool in there that sort of ropes players in, a little bit like Curse of the Azure Bonds, where like somebody gets turned into, like you're being turned into goblins. So you have to find the solution. But you can go in any direction. And I let the players lead the dance. I was like, where do you want to go now? You're in a big cavern. Here's what you see, and you don't need to railroad those situations. But I think it's good to approach a sandbox style adventure or game with a sandbox style attitude, not like they need to go north or whatever. And you need to accept, like, if the party decides to walk away from their adventure completely, that's what happens. Doug Ray from North Texas is really great at just pulling adventures out of his ear, and like they go the opposite way. He's like, okay, here's what happens, and then he just throws a couple of things in, and next thing you know, he's got an adventure. Corey asked me, do you still have any preference over one edition over another? I try to avoid answering that question because people really love 5th edition. But if I'm going to play Dungeons and Dragons for myself, I prefer a mashup between 1st edition and 2nd edition. I actually enjoy a late 1st edition where, like, with Unearthed Arcana, so you can have like non-weapon proficiencies and things like that. I'll admit to enjoying THAC0 and stuff like that. So what I usually do is end up with a mash. It's like somewhere between 1st edition and Osiric. I like some of the things that Osiric fixed, and then 2nd edition. As a 2E brand himself, the Lands of Lunacy sounds like an excellent solution for some of the problems of the group that doesn't always have 100% attendance. It's the core. Like, it started out as something for convention play, but then it turned into, like, it was a tool for when people don't show up. We all got older. My friends that were playing D&D aren't in high school anymore, so we don't have these reliable schedules. We have kids and we have lives, and we have priorities that take over. And so, yeah, it's just like a tool for adult gamers that have lives, and the Chaos Void is kind of like representative of the real world, and the pocket dimensions are adventures. So yeah, when everybody doesn't show up, it's the solution that I had. And it's really short. It's a short, sweet solution. I think Glenn called it Planescape Light, and it kind of is. He's pretty right on that. When I start designing a story, do I start with a vibe or a particular event structure? Well, now I've got Rick Martins doing a lot of writing for me, so I kind of just like throw him a vague idea. But Christopher Clark from the old D&D days, who worked with Gary Gygax and TSR for a long time, gave me some of the best help. Oh, and Jim Ward, don't forget Jim Ward. He is those are two great friends of mine who have helped me immensely in writing adventures. When I want to start designing a story, they have taught me how to outline. Chris uses flowchart method and uses the questions why a lot. You can't just say because magic. And it's funny because one year I rode to Texas with Jim and Chris, and there was like this long. Every time they would talk about creating an adventure, Jim would say, "Well, it's just a magic item," and Chris like, "You can't say it's just magic. It's got to be there for a reason." But yeah, so when I start thinking of a story, usually I try to think of the general theme. Sort of start at the end and work backwards sometimes. But no matter what, there's an outline and a flow chart. You really should know about how many encounters you want to have. And writing an adventure is just totally different than preparing the game for your friends. I was really unprepared for that when I started. Oh, okay. Well, Alexander, I'm glad that I could answer your questions. Yeah, if there's anything else, I don't know. I didn't think that I would have so many people watching me like yammer on. So, any other fail squad games questions, adventure questions, or nerd questions, or I don't know what y'all want, but yeah. So, it's, what else? Oh, I just sent Glenn the Foscanansi. So Glenn Hallstrom's going to do me a review video. If y'all haven't watched him, it's Old Man Grognard on YouTube. He has been a super supporter. Can I talk about my art process? Or oh wait, oh hold on. Corey asked, do you allow for organic development in your writing, or do you stick to the outline pretty closely? I allow for organic development, but I allow for organic development in the outline primarily. And that is my Jim Ward and Chris Clark, the wisdom that they've passed to me. Because with a sloppy outline, if you think you're just going to write an adventure like the Great American Novel from beginning to end, you'll get lost and you'll get overwhelmed and you'll have tons of loose ends that don't make any sense. But if you have an outline, the outline can really just be like a nested outline with like simple things, directions you want to happen. And then while you're writing, the organic bits, you already know where you are, you can almost write it one encounter at a time or one section at a time. So it gets a lot easier writing that way. Before I had Chris and Jim helping me figure out how to put adventures together, the early adventures are really a mess. I apologize to people who had to play through my early adventures. And my art process. Wow. My art process has been screwy lately because I've had a lot of challenges. But really it depends on the request. So like when I get an illustration request, sometimes it dictates how it's going to go. So sometimes it's going to be pen and ink on old-fashioned paper, and sometimes it's going to be digital illustration or paintings or cover art. So as far as the process goes, I let the request dominate it. And for these modules, for my modules, even the 5th edition ones, I like to try to keep a sort of old school feel. So I'm like trying to make 5th edition still feel like 1st edition. So like the illustrations are pen and ink in there. This is actually this one over here is actually watercolor with pen and inks. So I keep a lot of materials traditional. The full color modules, I do digital illustration almost exclusively. But yeah, so the process is really like for pen and inks, it's just like anything else. I start with pencil and outline and dig into it. And for the paintings, it's the same thing. One year, a few years ago, I went to North Texas and I shared a room with Jeff Easley, and they asked us if we could do paintings while we were there. And I had shared a booth with Jeff, who is my like hero, the reason why I became an artist, and I had to do a painting next to Jeff Easley doing a painting. And I was a wreck the whole time. Jeff and I became friends after that convention, but wow, it was a lot of pressure to like, hey, can you know, yeah. Jeff's art process is really interesting too. He'll do a couple of marks with a pencil very lightly on his canvas, and we took a lunch break. And then he came back and he had some, I don't know, I think he was doing an oil painting, I think. So I think he probably did alla prima most of it. So he was going to he'd do a quick underpainting in like, not ochre, but, sienna or something. And he'd just take the brush and the next thing you know, there's this like skeletal warrior. And we went to dinner. Comes back the next day and it turns it into a painting. I'm pretty sure he's a wizard. That was a great convention though. And Jeff and I watched my daughter graduate from high school from Texas. Missed, I think I missed the graduation ceremony. I didn't miss the graduation, but just the ceremony. So yeah, like, what was it, 4 years ago or so? Yeah, give or take. I quit a cushy office job as a graphic designer and because just decided to pursue happiness instead of some money. So I just started illustrating for Lesser Gnome and Zach, and he kept feeding me work, and then I kept finding more work, and eventually I ran out of work and started writing my own modules to start illustrating. So I needed things to illustrate, so I started writing. That's how I started writing, and I was lucky enough to become friends with Chris Clark. She's really started helping, and then Jim Ward has been this font of wisdom and advice and you can do it commentary when I think that my writing's a mess. Whatever, Jim just says, oh, you can do this. It's not a problem, but Jim is a very inspirational leader in the writing world. He'll write thousands of words a day. I can't remember what his goal is off the top of my head. 3,000 or 4,000 words, 3,000 words a day or something is what he likes to do. And he writes a lot. War and Peace could as an adventure module. Oh my God, yeah. Yeah, that's something I never understood was the mega dungeons. Ernie is doing one now. Ernie Gygax and Benoit are doing a mega dungeon, and I was kind of after Ernie for a little while of like, how do you run it? Like how do you, when you get a mega dungeon, how does that work? And like, I don't know, after a while, it seems like door, room, but Ernie's games are like incredibly popular, so I don't think it just gets stale, but I really would be curious to sit in with Ernie if he ever ran a mega dungeon. But yeah, they're in the midst of like this huge project. What else? What am I missing? Well, hold on a second. Let me go find some other things. I'll be right back. Don't go away. Isn't a good campaign world just a mega dungeon writ large? I suppose it is, but I don't know. Like mega dungeons always kind of bothered me in that, like like what created them, or do you lose the connection of why they're there and everything? It just seems like I don't know. I don't know. I've never played through a mega dungeon enough to really understand like how it's intended to be run by the writers. So, like I said, if Ernie ever runs a mega dungeon, I'm gonna be knocking on his door. Justin says they take multiple treks. Yeah, and see, that's how I understand that Gary Gygax used to run his dungeon, oh shoot, whatever, his deadly dungeon there. But he would get, yeah, so like people would pop in and out, and it wasn't a matter of like keeping your one character through the whole dungeon. The goal was to create a character when you came to the shop and see how long it took you to die. First edition was very death laden. I mean, you just lost characters. Characters died. Fifth edition seems to be, later editions seem to be like you get attached to your characters. The second edition, I'm super attached to characters pretty quickly. But yeah, I think, I can't remember who it was. I think Ernie was telling me when I was hanging out at his house one time that that Gary's dungeon was just really just to see how long you could survive, and it is okay to say goodbye and end it. Yeah, I know. As many good D&D game depends on the skill of the DM to keep the players interested. That's true. Yeah. Um, yeah, the investment. Yeah, and that's the other thing that I always struggle with too is an expose. I don't like having just like having one NPC do this long expose. I try to avoid having long paragraphs for the DM to read all at once. I like the story to reveal itself through play instead of somebody having to take notes about things that you're saying over like a whole page of text. So the other one, this was my sandbox, was Curse of the White Mind. It's got some muddy bits in it that I think I would change now that I've got a little more experience under my belt, but I don't know that I'll revisit it for a while anyway. It's a fun adventure, and it's totally open. It's not a big one. You could probably play it in one sitting, and it's one of the adventures that you have to be willing to just throw it aside if the players go out the door. If they get out of the cage and leave, then you need to let them leave. They might turn into goblins and revisit, but it's a different story. Yeah. And I think the Kickstarter did really well, and I was pleased with it. It's full color. I think this is the first full color module that we did, so that was fun. Winter Eternal is I think that's this one here. It's also full color, and it was the first adventure module for Lands of Lunacy that wasn't included in Lands of Lunacy, I believe. And the whole adventure takes place inside of a snow globe. Picked up some holiday hours at Target last year, and I was like, there was this big set of shelves with tons of snow globes, and it was part of my job to make sure that they were organized, and I was like, there's a whole world inside of there, and I was like, oh, that's an adventure. And then the last one, this is the one that this is the Kickstarter that just finished delivering. This is our first hardback that I was talking about. Glenn's going to review for us. And this is like the first one that I did that's 1E and 5E in the same adventure. I've been in debate with myself and Rick and Scott, my editor, about how long we can do this, 1E and 5E together in the same thing, because 5th edition seems to be diverging quite a bit from 1st edition. And so the crossover isn't quite as simple as it used to be, because there's things that we need to account for, like tieflings and things. So there's like this whole thing. If you have a tiefling somewhere in your adventure, making that a 1st edition thing becomes more difficult. Some of the new spells and there's new abilities and stuff don't really convert to 1st edition as well or as smoothly as I'd like. So we may have to, I wanted to keep doing this 1E, 5E at the same time. I don't know if I've got an elegant solution to continue it. Yes, Dees, thank you for watching. I don't know. This is really just Alexander's interview for me, but hey, if people are gonna watch me yammer on, why not? Yeah, it was good to see you. Yeah, yeah. Thanks for watching. I don't think I have anything else to add, and I think I've answered all of Alexander's questions. And so, thanks for your time. And failsquadgames.com is the website, and I'm here all week. See y'all later.